Coming up on this episode of Remember World War II, we meet a 100-year-old soldier whose frightening experiences in Italy stole his innocence, but not his heart. Make sure to watch the full video to hear his incredible stories and how even today, he still volunteers in his community.
And I could see that I was sure aimed at our boat, and I gave the alarm. It was a German Messerschmitt. And we passed about 40 acres covered with bodies. The bombs were super quick fuses, and when they hit the trees, they exploded, and the shrapnel spread all through that forest. I slept under a booby trap for 2 months. It was what we called a potato masher. It was a hand grenade.
These are the frontline testimonies of a generation that came together to put their lives on the line to protect our freedoms. We owe it to them to always remember World War II.
Hi everyone, this is Rishi Sharma. I'm the one who interviews all the World War II veterans. Today I'm privileged to be with World War II hero Jack Moran. And I just want to ask you, whoever's watching, please consider supporting my efforts to document the World War II veterans. It costs a lot of money to travel and meet the veterans and videotape them and get the interviews edited. And any donations go towards getting these heroes preserved forever.
I'm a combat veteran of World War II, fought in Europe with George Patton. It'd be great if you people, many of you, would help support Rishi's work. He's done a great job for several years. He's one of the few people really keeping alive the memory of all the people who died with me, protecting everybody's rights and protecting our democracy. If you could help, that would be just most appreciated. And he'll continue to do this great work, and you'll be helping, impressing a great number of people and getting them to know about the sacrifices that were made to keep this country safe. So please help.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, sir. People like Jack Moran deserve to live forever, and with your help, he can. These stories will go on for eternity, educating future generations about the true sacrifices made by a bunch of young kids who are willing to put their lives on the line so we wouldn't have to.
Amen.
And God bless the World War II veterans. Please, everyone consider donating or becoming a Patreon member. For as little as $5.50 a month, you can get access to full-length interviews, exclusive bonus content, your name in the credits, and so much more. I would like to thank the generous sponsor of today's video, Mr. Jeremy Smith. He truly cares about the World War II veterans and preserving their stories. Hopefully other people do too. Thank you again, sir. And now let's meet our World War II hero.
Hello, folks. My name is Frank W. Smith. Everything has a beginning, and mine began on May 5, 1922. I was born in Beatrice, and as a child I lived here all my life. I was born in near the 30s when the Dust Bowl occurred. There was a terrible drought, food was scarce, employment was scarce. To get our meat, I had to go and hunt for rabbits and squirrels. That was the source of our meat supply. Once in a while, we might get some hamburger. Many men were unemployed. The highways were filled with men seeking to go somewhere to find employment. And the rule was, if you saw a hitchhiker, you picked him up took them as near as you could to where they could go to help them as much as we could. In those days, people helped one another. Somebody needed some help, they could always find somebody to help them. Don't find that these days. I was in the 91st Division, 363rd Regiment, Company D, which is a heavy weapons company with 81 millimeter mortars. And we had a 50 caliber machine gun, which we had to steal to get. We knew where the German troops were at, and we got the range, and we set the fuses and things for the mortar shells to go over to where they were and explode wherever the Germans were. I probably killed a lot of people, but I never saw any of them. Finally, we shipped out after 2 months and went to Sicily and anchored off of Sicily for a day, and then we went on to Naples. Naples, it was one of the worst places I ever been in. It was full of the scum and the drag of people in that area. I wondered how people really lived there. Well, I made friends with some young people who turned out to be part of the Italian underground, and they invited us to dinner. And there was Kyle and Herb and myself went there, and they lived in an upstairs apartment. And they told us that when the Germans were in command, they used the railroad, which would pass by their rear window, to the front. And they obtained a machine gun, and when the trains went by, they would fire out the rear window at the trains through the train windows. There must have been a lot of wounded German guys when they finally got up to the front, but they never did discover them. They got some PT boats for us. They were pretty large, and we started north up the Adriatic Sea to vThis, which was about 100 miles or so north of Rome. And we were tooling along pretty good, and I happened to look up in the sky, and I saw this plane, and it was going the other direction, and then it turned around, and I could see that it was sure aimed at our boat, and I gave the alarm, and sure enough, here he came. It was a German Messerschmitt, and he was going to strafe us. And I was up in the bow of the boat, but I rushed over to the wheelhouse, figuring that if I got up close to that, the bullets had missed me. And sure enough, they went over my head, and he missed our boat. So that was my first experience of getting shot at. We got up to vThis, up to a forest where we disembarked, and it was nighttime by that time. And the trucks were there waiting for us, and we boarded the trucks. They were 6x6s, and the dumb drivers turned on their lights so they could see where they was going. Unbeknownst to them, overhead was a Stuka bomber. He saw the lights, and he bombed us. Fortunately, the bombs were super quick fuses, and when they hit the trees, they exploded, and the shrapnel spread all through that forest. And I figured out what was going to happen, so I found me a great big tree, and I hid behind that. And sure enough, I could hear that shrapnel hit that tree. but I escaped. That was my second baptism. So finally we got disengaged from there and went on our way and encountered rifle fire. That was the third baptism. So I found out all about bullets. Boy, they whine and they sing. In fact, I got a little scared, I think. Well, we went into bivouac and started preparing for our northward march. Now, the Germans occupied the mountains ahead of us, which are always higher. They were always higher than we were. And we were always looking up at them. That was pretty uncomfortable. We got billeted in some houses, and I was in this one here for about 2 weeks, and the roofs over there are tile, heavy tile. There's no wood to speak of there. That country was denuded of wood when they made the ships, the sailing ships, and had never been fully restored. And then we encountered the shelling, and the Germans, they had those super quick fuses in those shells, and when they hit the tile, they exploded. And when shells explode, the force is always upward, not downward. I think one of the worst parts of that war, I was sent to headquarters, and I had a Jeep driver, and we passed about 40 acres covered with bodies. It was a terrible sight. It's hard to imagine that people could do that. I was sent on a mission with Jeep driver, and there was a fork in the road, and we took the right-hand turn, and we were tooling along there, and I began to feel real uneasy. So I told the driver to stop and turn off his engine, which he did. There wasn't a sound. There wasn't a movement. I finally figured out we were in no man's land, and I was headed to German lines. So we started up and turned the Jeep around and hightailed it back. Boy, no man's land is a terrible place. There's nothing there. So that was one of my escapes. I slept under a booby trap for 2 months. It was what we called a potato masher. It was a hand grenade. And it was on a shelf in the room where I was. And I asked them to remove the thing, and they said, no, it's just fine where it is, and nothing's going to happen. So I slept on this cot, and that doggone thing was over my head all the time. So I finally got used to my friend.
What was the reason they didn't want to move it? They were afraid of it being booby trapped, or?
Well, it might explode. They didn't want to touch it. But finally, we got to the Po Valley. And then the war ended. And the silence was terrific. We had all kinds of caravans full of guys moving to the rear. They were run out of military police, so they used Germans. And I remember one time we come up to a point or the Germans were coming too. And guess who went first? The Germans, which made us kind of unhappy. Well, we had to scrap a lot of our equipment and stuff. We got boarded. Started shipping home. I remember one time they had a bombing run from Italy to Germany. We were bivouacked at the base of the mountains. And the airplanes had to fly back down to Naples and turn around so they could get up over the mountains. There was so many aircraft that took almost an hour and a half to pass over us. So when we were shipping out and going down the Adriatic, I saw those same aircraft piled up as junk. Half a mile wide, 5 miles long. Cheaper to junk them than it was to ship them home. And the people would take the tires off and make soles for sandals because there wasn't any footwear. That's the way they ended up. We got back home at Newport. It was the World Series. I never saw so many cars in all my life. For how many people? It was so strange after 22 months of nothing but privation and danger that it was hard to get assembled to civilian life again. Was when I was walking down 6th Street and a truck backfired, and man, I dove for the ground. That was just automatic. Then I looked around, and nobody paid any attention. So, I guess the war's over. And
Thank you so much for your service, for sharing some of your memories, Mr. Smith. If it's okay, I want to ask you some questions.
okay. I got a little emotional. I'm sorry about that.
You have nothing to apologize for. It's an emotional subject. You were a young man and you went through a great amount of stress and experiences. Can you talk about the destruction to some of the towns in Italy that you saw, sir?
Well, I saw a lot of destruction, buildings, and after the war, they were all replaced like they were. I remember I was in a truck and we were moving through, I forget the name of the town. Anyway, people were cheering on the side of the streets as our vehicles moved along. And I noticed there were 3 or 4 guys, Italian, moving along, and one would point to another Italian standing by, and they'd just shoot him. And they moved along, and they'd shoot somebody else. And as far as I could see, well, that's what they were doing. And the ones they were shooting were the ones that cooperated with the Germans. And that was the justice that they had at that time. Pretty brutal, but factual. Right there in the crowd. Drop them right there.
Can you talk about your living conditions in combat, please?
I lived in a pup tent, which is a strip of canvas over a rope. And I started the war with one blanket. By the end of the war, I had 7, so I could keep warm. I used a candle in my tent to keep warm. It was bitterly cold. I swore I'd never be cold again. We were bivouacked near 105 howitzers. And every time they'd fire one of those things, it would blow my candle out. Also affected my ears. I'm handicapped that today. That's what you could call a chilling thought. Well, sure enough, I got a case of beer, and that's a sign of movement. So I traded the beer off for pipe tobacco. And then it began to rain. It rained about 5 inches. And we moved out, and I found myself walking in ankle-deep mud behind a tank so I could keep warm in the exhaust. And we started toward the last push to the Po Valley. That was a hard trip.
What would you want to say to the men who were killed in the war? What would you want them to know?
To the men that were killed in the war,
Yeah. Was their sacrifice worth it, you know?
their sacrifice is worthy because they died for somebody else. I'm sure that in heaven they'll receive their just reward. It's a hard thing to fathom because it just happens, you know. Nobody wants to die because of what goes on here in their life. It's natural they want to live. In my case, I don't think so much about it. I just keep doing the things to do. That's the way it is.
What advice would you like to give to future generations, Mr. Smith?
To do everything they can the best way they can. In adversity, be patient. It will come to an end. Always does. We learn by adversity. Things get tough, we learn to deal with it. Take care of other people. The thing that I live by is the first and great commandment. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Do things like that, everything's going to be okay.
Thank you for sharing that. what would you like to see future generations do to make you feel like the sacrifices you made and the men of World War II, the men and women made, were worth it? What can future generations do?
Care for one another. Put evil thoughts away. Be honest. Forthright. Don't listen to those that try to lead you astray. Whatever the evil people try to get you to do, they don't do it for you, they do it for them. Evil people need company, and they'll get their just reward, whatever that may be. Go to church. People these days are abandoning churches, and this is bad for them, bad for the country. This country was built upon the faith in the churches, the things that churches stand for. I think people leave Jesus because they can't explain him. We're not meant to explain that. We're meant to accept it, believe in the faith, protect it, build it, do the things you're supposed to do.
Amen.
Amen.
What kind of person do you want people to always think of you as, Mr. Smith?
Gosh, I don't know.
You know, when your friends and your family, when they think about you in the future, what kind of person do you want them to think of you as? As what kind of man?
A kind person. I think that sums it up. We have to deal with what we have, what we experience. We have to have good leaders. But of all the things, the most powerful force in the world are the people. That's what America is about, are the people. We're in dire straits right now, but it'll all come to pass. There are better days ahead. That's the way things are. We have to have the patience of years. And Americans have always fought through dire straits and made things right. And we'll do it again.
Well said. When are you running for office?
Well, they don't have any offices for guys like me.
Thank you so much for all your time. Thank you for your service. You know, the reason I contacted you is because I saw you in the news. I would like you to take some time to talk about your volunteer activities, what you do every day and why you do that?
I'm associated with the Beatrice Senior Center, which has a kitchen, and the staff puts out 204 meals a day. And they are delivered all over the area. One of us delivers meals over a route of 65 miles every day, 5 days a week. There are a lot of senior people who live alone, and all their friends are gone, like mine, and they have no one to talk to. All they can do is sit in their chair and watch the darn TV. I deliver 16 to 20 meals a day, 5 days a week. I have a driver, since I lost my driver's license because of my age. And I go into the house, I talk to them, I help them. They're always glad to see me. I counsel with them. I'm a deacon of the church, so that's kind of in my line. Everyone gets a hug who wants it. Some people I have really helped. That's just the thing I do. I guess I've been helping people all my life one way or another. That's just me.
I'm just gonna take a couple videos of a couple things, and you did a great job. Thank you for your patience with me.
Okay. Thank you for your patience with me.
No way. No problem. So just hang tight. Smile.
Smile.
Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. These 3 things will help this channel continue to put out new videos every week. Please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber in order to help us fund travel to interview these incredible soldiers. And please reach out if you know any pro-veteran businesses that would be interested in sponsoring a video. And thank you for watching.
Thank you everyone for watching, and please be sure to write Mr. Smith a thank you for your service comment. He will be looking at this video in the comments you all write. God bless the World War II veterans. Thank